forgot to turn my mic on. There we go. Hey, everybody. Had such a good time doing some live coding yesterday. Thought I'd do it again. Mess up some CodeWars stuff. Turn the very easy, simple kata into a really, really tough solution. Hey, Survivalizer. Good to see you again, brother. Bava? Or Bahava? Is it Bava? Not sure how to pronounce that. But hey, what's up? Everything's all right, yeah. We're doing good. I just getting some live streams in. Trying to get back into the groove of things with some programming stuff. It's been a while since I've been on the channel, so thought I'd do some live streams to kind of kick things up a notch and kind of get back into the habit of doing some C# coding, because I've been doing like management work for the last 3 or 4 years, so I'm a little bit out of experience. So I'm taking like these really simple little katas and easy to solve things and kind of saying, how can I blow this up? How can I just make this like really, really bad code, but like neat and clever? Like, I would never implement this in production kind of stuff, but let's explore some of the ways that we can use the language in interesting ways to solve the problems. So, what's up, Viswanath? How's it going? All right, I don't want to delay too long here. Turn the audio down a little bit more here. Hopefully you are all enjoying the background music. Switch over to my screen and we'll take a look at tonight's kata. It's just simply called clock, but it's really about like seconds past midnight. That's kind of the kata. Turn everything into a message bus. That's right. That is right. Everything's a microservice now. we need to deploy it through with Docker and do some Kubernetes clustering here and get a pod going. That's right. That's the way we do it now. Maybe one of these nights I'll actually do that. I'll take some code and deploy it through Docker and do the whole 9 yards that way. Well, that's great, Viswanath. That's great to hear. A lot of people love the Access series. I think that's why a lot of people subscribe to the channel, is for the Access stuff. I haven't really done too much Microsoft Access in several years, so as bad as my C# skills have probably atrophied, my Microsoft Access skills have also atrophied even more, probably double that. But it's still near and dear to my heart. I still love Access. It's a great overall rapid application development environment. It does a lot of great killer things. Develop very simple desktop applications with it, and even more complex ones if you really wanted to. But all right, well, let's dig into some stuff here. Let's do some coding. So the first, this is the clock exercise. Again, it's basically seconds after midnight. And it's not really even really about a clock. It's not really about telling time. We're gonna make it about time in just a bit, but it's really just like doing some simple calculations to determine how many milliseconds, actually, it's not seconds, it's actually milliseconds after midnight that the time is. And so the clock shows H in hours and M in minutes and S in seconds after midnight. And your task is to write a function which returns the time since midnight in milliseconds. So if H is 0, M is 1, so H is, of course, how many hours, M is 1, that's how many minutes, S is how many seconds, which is 1, then the result should be 61,000, because 1 minute is 60,000 milliseconds, and 1 second is 1,000 seconds. So you add 60,000 seconds plus 1,000 seconds, you get 61,000 milliseconds. And we can see that that is actually here down at the bottom. Can I move that? I could actually expand this out here. Here's the full test. is only one assertion, which is fine, but we're starting off with a test. I love starting with a test because it means we always know what we're supposed to be coding to, and we can make all sorts of these goofy changes that I'm gonna do. Like, I'm gonna make some just like outrageous decisions that are so stupid, and I would never do these in actual published code. But it's fun to tinker around and explore the language, and you know that you're doing something right when you can run the test and it passes. So I love starting off with a test. This is the CodeWars website, by the way, in case you are not familiar. It's codewars.com. Here's the kata. You can, I mean, if you want to go to the kata, you certainly can. You can just go to that link. Maybe I'll post it in the description. I don't know. Here, I'll put it up in the chat just in case. Oh, I have to sign in order to. I can't do it straight from here. Okay. Yeah, got some royalty-free music going. There we go. All right, there we go. So that's the link to where I've got the kata going. You can see it's just going to pass into the clock. It's currently a static class where you pass in you call the .past method on it. You pass in 0, 1, 1, and it should come out with that 61,000, right? Okay, so, but it's really just an integer. It's just a series of integers, just 3 parameters, int parameters that are being passed in. And to be quite honest with you, there's a very simple solution to this, but I'm going to start off with doing what I did last night, which for those of you who are not familiar with CodeWars, there is no IntelliSense here, so as I'm typing something, it doesn't give me any IntelliSense except for highlight. It just gives me different color codes for the different data types and stuff. But I want the full IDE experience while I'm developing, because I'm not just going to do some simple solutions here. I'm going to want some full-fledged like IntelliSense to go along with this. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new project here. Now this is an NUnit test case that's here. We can see it's NUnit using NUnit framework, and test fixture and test are attributes that are put on NUnit classes. So I'm going to need to go ahead and create an NUnit project. So we're going to do .NET. By the way, if you're not familiar, .NET new, and then I can do list, and this will give me a list of all of the different potential projects. I did install, by the way, the latest .NET version 8, which just came out like, what, 3 or 4 days ago. So this has got all the goods in it, all the latest gadgets and doodads that are available. The one that we're looking for is the NUnit test project, this one right here, which we can see has an alias name of NUnit. So what that means is that when I want to go create a new project, all I have to do is just do .NET new and then give the alias of the project, which is NUnit. Now I'm going to also pass it in an output parameter, which is just -o, to say this is actually the directory. I want to give a specific output directory to where I want to create this project. And I'm just going to call this clock, because that's the name of the kata. So that's why I'm doing that. All right, I'm going to change directories into the clock folder. Just see what's in there. There's not much in there, but we're going to do a code period. This will open up our Visual Studio Code editor, where, since I created an NUnit project, we start off with a unit test class that is currently doing setup and test. No longer needs test fixture, but you can still use test fixture if you want to add it. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to take the 2 pieces of code here. I'm going to take the tests and copy this and put it up here, up there. And then, let's see. Then I need to actually go ahead and add the class itself, the clock class. So go back to my CodeWars and grab this stuff here, and we'll add it. Now we don't need 2 using systems, so we'll delete that one, because we already have using system up here at the top of our file. Don't even need either of these, because they are, and in case you were not watching yesterday, this is a fairly new thing that we have with .NET, which is the global usings. So right now we already have the global using of NUnit.framework. So I actually don't need this using NUnit framework because it's already in the global usings. So every class has access to the NUnit framework that's in this project, by the way. Using system, I don't need it just yet. It might get added later. Usually system is one of those namespaces that you end up having to bring in at some point. So we'll just keep it up there for now. But okay, so here's our starting canvas where we can do some good stuff. Let's solve this simply. Let's do the simple, quick, easy solution, the one that probably somebody could go on YouTube right now and cheat off of my solution. There's probably some better solution out there. There's really clever people out there that are doing Code Wars. So you put in your solution, then somebody has something better. But we would just do something like, we're going to take and put, so var h milliseconds is just going to be a simple calculation of h times how many hours. So we know it's if we take 6, so we know that there are 60, or well, there's 20. There are 60 minutes in 1 hour, and there's 60 seconds in 1 minute, and then there's 1,000 milliseconds in 1 second, right? So if you put all that together, I think you come up with some number. We could do a quick little pull up our calculator because I'm not gonna do the math in my head, but it's some outrageous number here. 60 times 60 times 1,000. It's gonna get us 36. So 3,600,000. Yeah, 3,600,000. All right, something like that. Okay, so we just do a simple multiplication of however many hours it is times that. We do the same thing basically for minutes. So we're gonna do m milliseconds is m times, and then this is gonna be just 60,000. And for seconds, it's going to be whatever the S is times 1,000. Oops, 1 too many zeros. There we go. So that's basically it. That's what we should be doing. I haven't tested this. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll figure this out though. So, but we want to effectively return is the h milliseconds plus the m milliseconds plus s milliseconds, and we'll see if that solves it. I don't know if that, I might be wrong. I might be totally off here. Let's run our test runner. Watch it be red. Watch, it's gonna fail. I probably did something. I'm probably not thinking this all the way through. I was thinking this is so darn easy, but I might. Come on, run the test. You built, now test it. Let's go. There we go. Yeah, no, it passed. Okay. My thinking was correct. Yay, okay. So there's our simple solution. There's probably some ways we could maybe do something to this to make it a little bit like a trickier, more clever syntax to truncate things together, right? We could do something, I don't know, we just actually don't even need any of these variables. We could just do something like this. Plus plus okay. All simple, really easy, and then just return the result of that. Right, so it's basically just truncating that one expression down into a single one. Now, somebody could, I think you could probably even do, what was it, like binomials or whatever, and you could like reduce it out to like take h times, let's see, was it h times, I think I don't need those 3 digits, and I don't need these 3 digits, and then s, and then multiply the whole thing by 1,000, and I think that's going to be the same result. Let's just check and see. I think that's another way to do it. Yep, that worked. So you could do it that way. If somebody probably put that answer up as, you know, some sort of clever solution. But that's a simple solution. There you go. That if you're just here on this video to be like, how do I solve this little clock problem, and you're wanting to cheat, you know, or you want to see the solution to how to do it, you want an explanation to how to do it, there you go. That's not what this video is gonna be about, though. This video is how can we foobar this thing up so that it just is exercising as much knowledge as we possibly can to come up with just the most ridiculous solution. And I'm gonna do it through a couple of phases. The first one is, I'm gonna go ahead and remove this, and I'm just gonna use, there's a class out there called timespan. And timespan allows us to pass into different methods on the timespan class values, right? So I would say like from, so you could do minutes, days, hours, microseconds, milliseconds, seconds, minutes, etc. So the first one's going to be from hours. Oops. And we're just going to pass in how many hours, which is h. And on the return from this from hours, the return result is another time span. So it's basically from hours is going to return another instance of a time span. So I can actually do chain method chaining here. Or they also call it Fluent. It's got a Fluent API, or you call it method chaining. Depends upon your background, where you come from. JavaScript, they call it method chaining. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to then just say total milliseconds, and that actually gives me the total number of milliseconds from hours, right? So it'll do the calculation for me, and I don't have to know the equation there like I had before. What was it? I don't even, 3.6 million. So I don't need to know that. But so I'm just going to go ahead and say hour seconds, or hour milliseconds is going to be the result of that. And var minute milliseconds is time span from minutes, and pass in the minutes. There we go. And again, convert that to total milliseconds. And finally, we'll do the seconds. So var second milliseconds time span from seconds, pass in s, total milliseconds. Now you'll notice, by the way, you do total seconds, total milliseconds, total nanoseconds. There's a bunch of other options here, total days, total minutes, blah, blah, blah. So there's a bunch of conversions that you can do here with this time span, which is really handy. Okay, so now we got those same three again. We're just gonna return hours in milliseconds plus minute milliseconds plus second milliseconds, right? You'd think that would work, but no, it does not. Why? Well, if we hover the mouse over the red squiggly, we see cannot implicitly convert type double to int. And that is because hour milliseconds, minute milliseconds, and so basically anything the return value of total milliseconds is a double. It's a double data type, not an integer. And we're supposed to be returning an integer. Now, there's a very simple way to do this. It's we're just going to do some explicit conversion here. You could do casting, conversion, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just going to do int, right? Like that. Okay, and if we run this again, we should get a green. There you go. All green. Right? So that's one other way we could do it. That's using a little bit of some built-in functionality in the C# or the .NET classes, which is great. You know, that's nice. It's reasonable, sure. But we're gonna go way beyond this. We're gonna do some, and actually, Survivalizer, you kind of hit in the direction I was kind of wanting to go here. I'm gonna, well, not quite, but yeah, I'm gonna basically make a class for each of the different types. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna build a class for each one of the types because we're object-oriented programmers. We're supposed to be writing objects to contain these things. So that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, I'm gonna leave this up here though. So I'm just gonna comment that out. Oh my gosh, heaven forbid I'm commenting out code. I'm not a big fan of commenting out code, but we're gonna do it here. All right, so, and yes, I do have a cheat sheet, by the way, so that because I worked all this out earlier today, but I'm still kind of doing stuff off the cuff, but at least it's a cheat sheet to kind of give me some initial direction of how I'm going to do this, because this is kind of complicated, right? I didn't want to waste your time as I was like doing research on, okay, how do I use that method again? I can't remember. So bear with me. I'm going to use a little bit of my cheat sheet here, but you'll see me type all the code out. I'm not just going to copy and paste it. I hate it when people do that. I hate it when like tutorials say like, I copied and pasted this code over for you. Let me go through it. I hate that. That's not a very, I like to actually see the code being typed out and hear the thoughts as to why the code is being typed that way. All right. Oh, Viswanath, thank you so much for the donation. I really appreciate that. I'm not used to donations. This is weird. Live streams are like my bag and they're great. I need to do more of them, I think. But I really don't expect any money from any of these things. So when you donate, I really appreciate it. That's terrific. I just do this mostly for the fun of it and to kind of, again, get my skills going again. All right, so I don't want to just do simplicity here. What I need to do is I need to create a class. What I'm going to do is I want to create a class for each of these different scenarios of an hour, so an hour class, a minute class, and a second class. Okay, and that may sound foolish, and that's because it is. There's really no need to do this, but we're going to explore how it could be done. So the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to create an interface, because effectively what I'm doing is the same calculation or the same thing that I need each of these different classes to do is basically the same thing, which is to return some sort of total milliseconds result, right? Like some sort of calculation, right? Each one of them is really just going to return some sort of calculation. And they're all basically the same calculation, and I need to do it for each one of them. So what I'm going to do then is let's do the first one. Well, actually, let's create the interface. So I'm going to do a public interface. I'll call it time unit, just because I couldn't think of anything better to call it. And what I want this to do is return time in milliseconds. Okay, so time. So public. It's just int time in milliseconds. Yeah, milliseconds. And this is just going to be a get. What I'm going to have it do is actually be a calculation. And in fact, I could make this a method, but I'm gonna do it a little differently. I could make this like instead of a get like this, I could make it require us to be a method like this. But I'm not going to do that. I actually want this to be a property. I just think the syntax is a little neater coming from a property than it is from, like if I was to do this as a method, by the way, okay, point of clarification here. That's really important. This is actually something really important that you could definitely learn from at this point. So I've got this as a property called time in milliseconds. And that's because it's effectively a state, right? I'm saying the state of this thing is this amount in this time of milliseconds. So I'm declaring it as state as a property. If I was going to declare this as a method and I was going to say, no, I want to create a method on here that's going to calculate the time in milliseconds, then I would actually say get time in milliseconds and then convert this to a method. Okay, and the reason is fairly simple, because again, you're talking about object-oriented programming, and with object-oriented programming, you have the objects, which are nouns, you have the actions, which are verbs, and you have the properties or the state, which is what, adjectives, right? So you want to make sure that you are just giving some sort of description of or a name of the state, a name, some sort of adjective, basically name to a property. But when you're describing a function, you need to give it some sort of action. It's going to get the time in milliseconds or calculate the time in milliseconds, right? Something like that, that is an action verb to your methods. It's really important that you do that, because later on when you go to actually use those methods and use those properties, it's going to sound more reasonable as you write the code to access it, okay? So these are just small little things, but they actually add up to big dividends later on when you go back and you try to actually utilize the code that you're writing. So, okay, let's, I'm gonna, once again, I want this to be a property just because I feel like it, feels like it. And capital time in milliseconds. Okay, so that's going to be the name of my interface, is time unit, and I'm just going to have a property on each one of the classes that implements this time unit that's going to be called time in milliseconds. So let's go ahead and create some of those classes. The first one is going to be, we have the hours one first, I think, so we'll do a, now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do something a little tricky here. And this is one of the first little, I don't think I've ever actually covered this in any of my C# courses. And it's kind of a little known thing. It's not something that, like Java developers do this all the time, but C# developers really don't do it, even though it's in the language. And that is what's called a private class. So I bet you didn't know, but inside of a class, you can create another class. So you can have a class inside of a class. Ooh, okay. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna create a private class, what we call a private class. These are called nested classes, okay? So these are nested classes. They're a class inside of a class. So we're gonna create a private, oh, wait, I don't want caps lock though. Private class. And I'm gonna call this hours time unit. And it needs to implement time unit. All right, now it needs to implement the time unit. So I'm gonna cheat here. I'm gonna hit control period, and that'll give me, hey, do you want to implement the interface? I certainly do. So there we go. It's gonna do public int time in milliseconds. Right now, it's just gonna throw new not implemented exception. I'm gonna leave that here for now because I need to implement the actual code here in just a second. Effectively, the way I want this to work is that when I go to create the hours time unit class, I want to pass in how many hours into the constructor, and then just simply use this time in milliseconds property to go and calculate the value from basically what I set it in. I'm making this a read-only object, basically. I'm making this a read-only class. So it's only gonna, like, you can create it once, you can pass it in a value, and that's it. Because again, I made this time in milliseconds just to get, right? So it's only going to be able to read the property value. It can't create a value, it can't assign a value to time in milliseconds. It can only get the value. So I'm going to want to add a constructor here, and this is going to be for hours time unit, and the parameters is going to be so we'll do what did I call it here just to make sure? Time unit amount. Okay, and we'll just go ahead and make this, we're going to create a backing field here, time unit amount, and set it to the time unit amount. Go create this backing property for me, or field. It's creating a field. And then instead of, now I'm just going to make this time in milliseconds. Instead of throwing an exception, which we obviously don't want it to do, we want it to return the calculation of time unit amount, which is just going to be this times the we could do the, do the whole multiplication of how many hours in milliseconds, the whole, what was it, the 3,600,000, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use the class that we already know exists that will do this conversion for me. So I'm going to do time span from hours. Pass in the time unit amount and return the total milliseconds. Okay, and it doesn't like me for some reason. I think it's because I don't have something not imported. Oh yeah, I haven't cast it, right? So I have to convert the double, because total milliseconds comes out as a double. I have to convert it to int. There we go. And I have to put parentheses around the calculation, because it has to calculate first and then later on it can do the conversion. So that's why I have to do the parentheses around the expression that returns the total number of milliseconds. Then once the expression is done evaluating, then it can go ahead and convert to the int. Okay, so now we've solved that little problem for hours. The next one is going to be minutes, and I'm just going to kind of copy. I'm going to do the dreaded thing. You're not supposed to. People who are sticklers for dry, no, I'm not a stickler for dry. Don't repeat yourself is a silly rule. I get it. If you do it like 3 or more times, then fine, but just a couple times, not a big deal. Minutes, it's still going to implement time unit, still going to have time unit amount. Time in milliseconds is still going to be what we need, again, because we're implementing the same timeout unit interface, but now the constructor needs to be matching the new class name, which is minutes time unit. Oops. There we go. Okay, and then we'll do this one more time for the seconds. And yes, I know I need to go back and fix something. Don't worry, I'll get there. Someone once said I'm not a true developer because I use my mouse. I don't know, maybe that's true, I don't know. From hours, okay, I do use my mouse a lot when I code. I don't know why. Minutes, I need to change the time span function call to the from minutes for our minutes time unit class. And I need to change the same thing for the seconds time unit. I need to change it from seconds. Okay. So now I've got 3 classes. Each of them have the same property on it called time in milliseconds. Each one of them does the calculation accordingly based upon whichever class it is that it's, associated with, right? So hours, minutes, and seconds. But how do I determine which class to create? How do I determine which of these, hours, minutes, and second classes, minute time unit classes, to go and actually instantiate and then pass in the hours, minutes, and seconds? That's where I gotta think now, right? I gotta do some of that. Well, there is a very common way to do this. It's called the abstract factory method. I'm just going to make a simple little abstract factory method here. It's going to take in. First, I'm gonna do something simple here. I'm gonna do private. I'm gonna do something simple, and then I'm gonna do something a little complicated with it, because it's kind of neat that I can do this. And I want to exercise my knowledge of the C# library. So. Okay, we're gonna do private. Now what we need this abstract factory method to do is return an instance of one of those classes, but we always know that since all 3 of these classes are implementing the time unit interface, we know that the result of the factory method is going to be an instance of an time unit. So we can say that we know that it's gonna be private time unit. The data type it's returning is a type of time unit. That's what we use interfaces. So time unit and then time. I'm going to call this factory method time unit factory. Okay. Now what I need to pass into it is right now I need to pass into it something that tells it which version of the class, right? Here's an indication, here's some data, some value that will tell you which class needs to be instantiated. So for now, I'm just gonna say string, let's call it, let's see, I didn't really have something on this before when I was coding this out. So I'm gonna call this time unit. Time unit type? No, just time. Yeah, time unit's fine. Okay, and then we need to actually get the amount, right? Because when we go and instantiate each one of these classes, they require that we pass in that time, the amount of time. So if it's an hour, and like in our test case up here, it's passing in 0 numbers of hours, but then it's passing in 1 minute and 1 second, okay? So we need to pass in the 0, 1, and 1 to the various classes that we're instantiating. So in order to do that, I need to pass into this time unit factory method that appropriate amount. So we're gonna say, and this is gonna be an integer, time unit amount. Okay, pretty straightforward. Now I just have to come up with some way of figuring out which one of these do I want. And I could go really far into, like yesterday's stream, I'm not gonna do what I did yesterday's stream, which was to essentially implement the strategy pattern. What I'm instead gonna do is I'm going to just simply do a switch case. I'm gonna do some pattern matching with a switch case statement. It's not even a switch case, it's just a pattern matching switch statement. So this is a relatively new functionality in C#. It's not totally new, it's been around for about like 4 years now, maybe. I think it was since C#7 that we've had pattern matching. But essentially it works like this. You take whatever since I could have one of 3 different options, right? I can choose one of 3 different classes that I want to instantiate. So that means I need to have something that says, if it's this, then instantiate that class. If it's this, then instantiate that class. So if it's a minute, instantiate the minute time unit class. If it's an hour, then instantiate an hour's time unit class, etc., right? So that's just really either an if-else set of statements, or I could use a switch statement. So I'm going to do return, okay? I'm going to return based upon the time unit, okay? I'm going to say switch on this, and here, actually, let me just, I'm going to drop the return just for now so you can see the syntax of the switch. I have to actually spell switch correctly. So time on the time switch unit, I want you to switch on time unit between these different options. Okay, the first option is if time unit matches H for hour, then go ahead and create a new hours time unit, okay? And pass in the time unit amount. Pretty straightforward, right? The next one is for minutes, so we'll do minutes, new minutes, time unit amount. And the last one is going to be the seconds, new seconds, time unit amount. Okay, and I need to put a semicolon at the end of the, don't I? Oh, no, okay, it's bucking me right now because I'm not assigning. So right now, what's gonna happen is if it's H, then it's gonna return an instance of our time units. If time unit is M, then I'm gonna create an instance of minute time units and return that. So basically this one statement, this one switch statement is going to return one of those 3 instances. So what I need to do then is I need to say, I could either assign it a variable, so like of time unit, time unit, I'm just gonna class. I could just do that. This is not what I'm gonna end up doing, but I could assign it to a variable like this, but I don't need to because each one of these, again, each one of these is going to implement the I time unit. So I don't need to define a variable and then fill that variable with the result. Instead, I could just simply return it, right? And it's gonna satisfy the need to hit I time unit. Now, there is private member time. Oh, it's not in use yet, of course. And cannot declare an instance of members in a static class. Okay. So, I can't create an instance inside of a static class because I'm dealing with a static class here. So let's drop the static because I just don't want that. And then it doesn't like this. So, oh, oops. I dropped the class. I would need to drop the static. Okay. I want to be able to create instances inside of this thing. I don't want to do static. I don't want to have to deal with static stuff. It's silly. Okay. Now that I've got my factory pattern set up, I'm actually going to add one more, by the way. This is, and I forget what the underscore is called, but it's like the default. So when you say, if it doesn't match any of those, you could just use the underscore, and that basically says it's like the default of a switch case statement. So if it's none of those three things, then do this, okay? And if it is none of those three things, then I want you to actually throw a new argument exception. And I'm going to say must use a time unit of H, M, or S. All right. Not the best descriptor, but that's okay. We know what our purposes are here. All right. Have I lost a bunch of you guys? No, actually, I've gained a few viewers. Nice. I got a few viewers today. Okay. So now what I need to do is I need to call the time unit factory for each one of the hours, minutes, and seconds and go create those instances and then return the calculation from each one of those classes. Oh boy. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, I'm just going to do this fairly simply. I'm going to do var h time is going to be equal to time unit factory. Am I in the right spot? I should be in the right spot. Yeah. Okay. I need to pass it in. So H and then H. Okay. Now it's not finding this right now. Object reference is required for the non-static field. Oh, because this is static. All right, there we go. Okay. So var m time, time unit factory, and then this is going to be, let's see, so h, and then m, and we're going to pass in the m, and var s time is equal to time unit factory. S, and pass in S. And then based upon all these, we just want to return the result of all of these milliseconds together. All right, okay, so I just want to show you here. Hours, time unit, no wait, I still need to get the milliseconds, don't I? Because these time units factories are going to return an I time unit. And each I time unit, remember, is going to have the time in milliseconds property on it. So it's not even that. What I need to do is, yeah, I'm just going to take and do the calculation here in time in milliseconds. There we go. Time in milliseconds and time in milliseconds. All right, there we go. Now we're going to go. Now we can go ahead and move forward with the addition of these different milliseconds together. So H time plus M time plus S time. Okay. Now that will, I believe, yeah. So each one of them is already converted into integers, right? Because each one of them is required on the interface to convert it to int. So I don't need to do any conversion for it. It's going to be done right here. So that's good. And I should be able to, we don't, that's because our test is asking for a new static case. I'm just going to do new clock. No, new. clock past. I gotta create an instance there of clock, and then I can call the past method on it. Okay, so there we go. So now I'm creating a new instance of the clock, and then I'm just calling the past. Now, some of you may not have known you could do this. Some of you may have thought every time you create an instance of a class, you have to assign it to a variable. That's not the case. You can always go create an instance of a class and then just call a method on the class. You can do that. If that's all you're looking for is just a method on the class to go do a calculation, you could do that. You don't have to actually create a whole variable and throw the instance into the variable. Like, that's not something you have to do. You can just create the instance of the class and then call the method on it and do this. And then there's garbage collection that happens in the background that'll just, when you're done using that instance of the class, it'll go ahead and toss it away for you. Now, if you were using some of the more, like C++ languages, like, they would skewer me for doing this because you should be destructing your classes. You shouldn't be relying upon garbage collection to always do this for you. But in C#, we have garbage collection, so we can go ahead and use that. Anyway, okay, that's getting a little out there, but yeah, you can actually create an instance of class, call a method on it. So that's what I'm gonna do, and then let's just see if we now pass. Let's see. Come on. Yeah, there we go. Okay, all green. So these changes worked. Great. So what could I possibly have more to do here? Well, I don't like the redundancy personally of having to pass in that this is an H, or this is an M, or this is an S. Oh, Viswanath, I've been neglecting the chat, I'm sorry. Viswanath says, I just donated you to buy coffee. Thank you. I don't know how much it costs for coffee. It's like $5 for a cup of coffee around here, US dollars. I don't know what it is in other currencies. Survivalizer, too bad there's not a built-in time class in C#. There is, but it's not great. Is not static anymore, so you have to instantiate it, right? Yes, because it's not static, I have to create an instance of it. I worked at a place where all we did was static classes for like 7 years. They didn't appreciate when I did classes you actually had to instantiate. Yeah, I mean, adding the whole extra parentheses here really just ruins the experience. Adding the new keyword and instantiating it, just forget it. That's too much work. Yeah, the problem with static is it just starts to put limits on what you can do with it. I always hate like the limitations of what you can do with static classes. So I just prefer creating instantiation because it allows me to do all this kind of stuff and create factory methods and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so but yeah, going back to, I don't really want to pass in like this H, or if I wanted to, I could do it as like hours and minutes, right? If I wanted to be more declarative of what it is I'm saying here, right? Like I could do that and then change these to hours and minutes and seconds. Okay, but I'm gonna do something that nobody should ever do. I mean this. Don't do this. Do not do this. This is not the purpose of the code. Like, the purpose of what I'm going to show you is actually for a completely different use case. But I felt like this is kind of cool to do. So I'm going to revert this all back to H, M, and S. And the reason is because there's a similarity here between H and H, and M and M, and S and S. Wouldn't it be cool if I could just, like, do it this way? And then drop this whole need to send it, like, the name of the type of unit? Like, could I just get that information from what's being passed in, maybe? No, not, okay, so Survivalizer says you're going to assume based on how big it is. No, there's no way for me to do that, right? Because 0, 1, and 1, how would I determine which one that is? There's no way for me to know that. Yes, it's a type of reflection that I'm going to use. This particular reflection is actually based on like producing log information to help you track down bugs in your code, or when there's an error, then it kind of helps you figure that out. But this is really cool. I love this. So all I have to do is, here in my time unit factory method, in the parameters that it's taking, so it's taking in this time unit amount, right? Well, what you can do is you can actually look at when time unit amount is, or when a time unit factory is being called and passed in something, you can inspect who the caller is and what it's giving you. So the way you do that is by, as a parameter to the method, you use an attribute called caller argument expression. And you just pass it in, you use the open and close parentheses, and then you pass in as a string the name of the parameter, or the name of the argument, right, that you are looking for. What's the name of the parameter that you want to inspect, that you want the expression of, so, or the caller argument for? So that would be time unit amount. Okay, so I'm going to actually look at this time unit amount using the caller argument expression. Okay, and then I have to give this a name, which coincidentally I already have a name, H, M, and S. And time unit is the name of the variable, or it was previously a parameter, right? Now it's nothing. So I can actually assign the result of this caller argument expression attribute is going to be assigned to this new parameter, again called time unit, and it's going to be a type of string. Okay, it doesn't like this. I think I need caller argument expression. Default values. Oh yeah, it can only be called with default values. I thought maybe I was missing a namespace, but I then need to assign it null. So that way it can, and this is just a limitation of it, it needs to always have something. It can't, it's always going to have something to evaluate on, because since this is using reflection, that means that the first time that the method is called, time unit factory method is called, it has to be able to compile to something. It has to be able to be assigned some sort of value. And since time unit is never called for either time unit for any of these time unit factories, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't have any value. So it has to be a default value, right? Because I can't, if I'm just calling time unit factory and I'm not passing it anything for this second parameter, it would error out. So I have to create it as a default value so that it will always have something. The first time through, when it like compiles the code, the value of time unit will be null. But then when it's executed, now time unit will be actually having something, which is going to be either the H, the M, or the S. So this is the way this works. H, M, and S, these are the variables or parameter names, right? These are the parameter names that we have up here that are going to be passed into the time unit factory. The caller argument expression is going to go get the name of that variable or of that parameter that is being passed to it, and then assigned to the time unit variable or time unit parameter. Now I can once again just use the time unit parameter to determine, are we doing hours, minutes, or seconds? So I can use this kind of cool little reflection to go do this. And again, I know this is kooky. Like, this is the whole point of this series, is to do kooky things, to do things you're not supposed to do in production, but it's like cool that you can get away with it and just do it. So I'm just gonna refresh this. And should pass. There we go. We pass our tests. That's great, right? Okay, Survivalizer says, you're going to assume based on how big it is right now. No, reflection, yeah. Oh God, LOL. Then someone renames your code and it all breaks. That is correct. That is why this is not something you should do in your code. Because if somebody decided, oh, well, I'm just gonna go ahead and do like seconds. I'm gonna change this from S to seconds, and this one to minutes, and this one to hours. right? Now I just broke the code. Even if I pass in, even if I change it here. Yes. Thank you, IntelliSense. You're being very helpful. Okay, now my code is broke, but it would compile, right? But my test won't pass. And this is another really great thing about tests is like, now this is not going to pass. I should be getting the argument exception now, right? Yep, there we go. System argument must be a time unit of H, M, or S. I probably need to fix my... I could really confuse whoever wants to use this and say must use a variable name of H, M, or S when passing to this method, right? Like somebody would look at that and go, why are you doing that? And it is a why. Like, this is not something you should do. I know I'm being all like happy and ecstatic about like doing something so stupid and off the wall, but like it's cool that you can do this kind of stuff in language. Just don't do it, but it's cool that you can do it. Okay, with those fixes, oh yeah, by the way, so now so I'd have to go in here and now my switch case statement, here switch hours and minutes and seconds, right? So now I have to use variable name of hours, minutes and seconds, minutes and seconds. All right, there we go. This is so stupid. Oh, if you can laugh at your code, then you're having a good day. All right, so there you go. That's all I had for you today. That was like all I really wanted to show you, just some cool funky things that you could do. And by the way, because I changed the test in here, like this won't actually work. So if I like take this class here, what did I do? Let's do public class. Like if I'm gonna take this and try to like make it past the CodeWars thing, it's not gonna work because we had the static in here. I don't know, maybe I'll fix it up sometime and see if I can like make this work with static so that it would pass. But yeah, this basically isn't gonna pass because it's looking to do just the static call on clock. But if I do like a new clock, if I fix the test up there, so I can tinker around with the test a little bit maybe. Does it not like that? Why don't you like me? The type or namespace called could not be found. Oh, yeah, I don't have my namespaces in here. I gotta bring in my names. I gotta bring in my using statements. Compiler services. There we go. Boy, I bet that's gonna just go really well. Okay. I don't know if this will even work because I am using a reflection. I don't know if their system would allow for reflection to happen here or this compiler services. Let's test it. Does it allow me to do that? No. Okay. Name. Argument section could not be found. Oh, I'm also missing system. Actually, using system should go up here. Using system. There we go. Why can't you just do my thinking for me? Yeah, I wonder if they have library. There we go. Yeah, look at that. I can make a test. I have to change the test so that it calls the method now, or it calls the class as an instantiated class. I might fiddle around with this to make it so that I can do it as a static, but that's maybe for some other time. And then maybe I'll try to submit it, but just to be goofy and do something so bizarre. But yeah, there you go. Enjoy that, which is the C# library, .NET library with C#. It's great. I hope you found this as entertaining as I did. It's pretty fun. You should definitely do this. Like, do this for yourself. If you're trying to learn more about any particular language, whether it's C# or PHP, God help you, or Java or JavaScript or Python, whatever the language is that you're trying to go learn, like do this kind of stuff. Like, what's a creative way that I can solve this without it being straightforward? The goal is not to get straight to the answer here. The goal, like, this is the thing. I've been doing instruction for a while, like not just on my YouTube. Like my last couple of jobs have been in the technology education industry. And one of the things that we're always telling our new students, our beginners, intermediate, and advanced students, is you've got to stop trying to get to the solution. It's not about getting to the solution. When you're trying to, you're in this education mode, you should be exploring all the kooky, stupid, silly ways you can do something. It's not about just, I have to satisfy the test requirements. Because if that's how you're viewing this, you're not actually going to learn much, right? You're going to be just trying to get to the simplest little solution. Okay. Let me bring it out as intermission. Let me transition. Okay. Since I'm pontificating and you don't need to see the code anymore, I figured we'll pull up this screen here. Ahmad Gala, when I show up on social media with my content, I will reference your effort because I learned a lot from you. Thank you so much. The name definitely strikes me. I do recall, it's been several years and I apologize. I have to apologize to everybody in my audience. Like I've been basically completely ignoring my channel for what, like 3 years now almost. It's been a while. I do a lot of like the agile stuff and management stuff now, but I still am involved in the education sphere, and I love that. Now, by the way, I'm looking for a job. I'm looking for a job as like a managing software engineering manager. Maybe a directorship somewhere, but mostly just looking for a software engineering manager. It's kind of what I've been doing in a way, just kind of in the education sphere. So it's been a very different road for me. It's not like your traditional software developer working the floor, being an engineering manager, then, after you become lead and, senior, then lead, blah, blah, blah. I kind of went a totally different route, which allowed me to go explore all sorts of different new things that I really, if I was stuck at like one or two places, and I know Survivalizer, you know what I'm talking about, stuck at just a few places, you learn their stack, and then that's like all the wisdom that you can get is from off of that. And then if you want to go learn something else, you just basically have to do it on your own time. The education part of my career has been fantastic for that, because I got to learn like so much more being in education and dealing with all sorts of different clients in different industries, from fintech to manufacturing to automotive to insurance to consulting. Like there's all sorts of these different businesses that I've helped them out with their domains and stuff, that I just expanded my knowledge way faster that route than I did just being a software developer on the floor as an individual contributor. And I'm so grateful for that experience. But I want to get back to the point I was making earlier. Like, if you're in this to try to educate yourself, you're trying to learn coding, you're trying to learn how to do software development of any new language, or maybe this is your first language, maybe this is your 20th language. Like, what you really need to do is not focus on solving the challenge that's directly in front of you. It's about, if you do that first, go solve the problem first. But then once you've solved the problem, try to explore how you can do it differently. Like, what's the craziest way I can do this? And just using the little bits of knowledge that you already have. Like, you may not know everything that you need to know in order to go be that crazy, but that's where you start to really explore and be creative about this. It's the creativity. And in fact, this is like scientifically shown. This is a specific way and modality in which you're learning, which is using the creative part of your brain, which is where you actually utilize and leverage and maximize the knowledge that you have, is when you're in the creative mode. It's called Bloom's taxonomy. You should go look it up sometimes. It's Bloom's taxonomy. And the highest level you can get is where you're actually creating something with the knowledge that you've gained. So the faster you can get to that, I want to create, the faster effectively that you're going to be learning. Sort of. Obviously everybody's going to be a little different, but like that's your target, is to always try to be creating. So if you're just going through the process, going through the motions, solving the answers, giving the multiple choice questions, whatever, that's not necessarily what you should be doing. You should be trying to explore, like, what else can I do? What else is out there? How else can I make this even though this is not the production solution, this is silly. This is ridiculous. I mean, come on. This is in no way, shape, or form would I take the code that I wrote now and put it in production. There's no way. I would mess someone's day up for sure. Okay, and I don't want to be that kind of developer. There are developers that are out there. Trust me, I've met a few that, you know, they want the comfort in their jobs, so they kind of do some things. But yeah, I just explore, do this kind of crazy stuff. And CodeWars, I think, is a great example of where to do that. Take some basic, simple little thing like I'm doing last night and tonight, and just blow it up. Try to do something crazy with it, like, oh, I need to do object-oriented programming instead of like a simple, you know, calculation using some math. Like, do more than that. Use your brain, you know, like use it. Do what you can to explore. Okay. Viswanath says, you are my first guru. Aw, thank you. I don't consider myself a guru, but I don't even. Yeah, I'm not calm enough to be a guru. I'm too boisterous and loud to be a guru. I'm more like an entertaining bear that's like got one foot on a beach ball and like doing a hula hoop and balancing a bowling pin on my nose. That's more what I'm doing here. Survivalizer says, American Airlines had an amazing interview question that kind of required recursion. Oh, is that like a quicksort? That wasn't quicksort, was it? C# used to not have recursion in it, by the way. In case anybody's wondering what recursion means, it's basically where a function can call itself. That's the short end of what recursion means, is a function can call itself. And it used to be that C# couldn't do that. The compiler would choke on trying to do that. And I think it was in like C# 6, I want to say. I think it was C# 6 where they finally got, at least in the compiler. So it would choke on it in the debug mode, but in the if you ran it, it would work. It would do recursion. They finally fixed it then. I would imagine they probably solved the debug problem by now. So yeah. You can do recursion in C# now, which you couldn't do for the very longest time. And if you had like circular references too, like that was a big problem. It's still you get circular references, but yeah, you can do your recursion properly in C# now. Okay, well that's all I had for today. Thank you everybody. I hope you learned something from this. It was fun for me. I'm gonna keep doing these. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do them nightly. I probably not. I don't really have that kind of time. But I'll definitely try to do them regularly because I think these are fun. They're exploratory for me, and quite frankly, they're kind of easy for me to make. They're not that hard. I just have to go find some problem and then code up some silly solution and then just present you the silly solution I came up with. Survivalizer says, no, it was figuring out if a position in a corporate structure was hired and who they were, I suppose. Who were they? Oh, okay. I just read that wrong. But yeah, good night. Have a good one. And that was fun. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much. I hope you guys have a great day and talk to you in the next one. Bye-bye.